Makkan and Madinan revelations. Can anyone just tell us what do we mean by Makkan and Madinan revelations? Very simple. New face? We got a new face. Or you have a new bag. You are either a new face or a man with a new bag. So just choose one. Huh? New face and a new bag as well. Okay. So, can anyone tell about the Makkan and Madinan revelations, please? Yes.
Before Hijri and after Hijri.
Yes, Mecca, but we will discover something a bit different. This is the most common view. But again, as I told you, here we need to transform ourselves beyond the very basic ABC level. I'm not trying to say that your level is yani, ABC or whatever, but I'm saying that I'm ABC level. So, but I need, the best thing is that you are always in need to transform your status of knowledge to be a better seeker of knowledge. Even in health, to have more of a health care or be a bit fitted or have health fitness, even in sports, in whatever, even in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are down below, you need to snatch yourself a bit higher, and then to be able to have better communication, better interaction with the Quran, and better engagement with your team. The scholars are in disagreement regarding the definitions, and somebody will say they are always in disagreement. They are not in agreement. Of course, we will deal with the disagreement thing, and you will see to what extent it is important and really beautiful to have disagreement. Makkan is that which is revealed before the Hijrah, even though revealed outside Mecca. So it is not just revealed in Mecca as a location, as a geographical boundary, but it is revealed before Hijrah, even though it is in Yathrib, in the outskirts of Mecca. The second view states that Mecca revelations are those revealed in Mecca, even after Hijrah, and the Madinan is what's revealed in Medina, only in Medina. The third view stated that the Meccan is that addressing the people of Mecca only, whereas a Madinan is that addressing the people of Medina regardless. So if we have somebody from among the Meccan community who is traveling to Medina, and the certain verses were revealed to the Prophet in Medina, those verses are not addressing the Meccan visit. Can you imagine that view? It's very exclusive. But these are the scholars, they have their own personal interpretation. But normally, what is commonly believed is that the Meccan revelations are those revealed in before Hijrah, whether in or outside Mecca, and the Medina revelations are those revealed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ after his Hijrah to Al-Madinah. Now we will move on to the collection of the Quran. During the collection of the Quran and different stages of collection. Actually, when we talk about the collection of the Quran, we are talking about two important points. Number one, the collection which has been carried out during the reign of Abu Bakr, the Caliph of Muslims, may Allah be pleased with him, the first Caliph of Muslims, and the second that was done during Uthman alayhi salam. It was not, this second one was not actually a collection, another collection, but a bit of arrangement and copying the Quran, sorting the copies, selecting certain copies for certain countries. So these are very important questions: who, when, and why. Yani, who collected the Quran? Who was the person having courage to talk about this, because at that time only a powerful person like Umar ibn al-Khattab could do the job. You can notice that Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, used to initiate certain ideas. In wine, have you forgotten? In wine, he told the Prophet, look, we want a clear cut in the collection of the Quran. Umar again, he took the initiative. And what else? Yes, please.
Hijab.
Hijab. Can you tell us?
Yeah, he has the same approach to Prophet about hijab, that
In terms of what?
to come to our masjid.
No. Thank you very much for your comment. However, hijab was not obligatory upon women at a certain time in Muslim history. It was also revealed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to cover his women. And his women were there in front of the whole community. They are not wearing full hijab. So Umar was known for his jealousy. Yes, please.
The third thing, he introduced Tarawih.
Yes, as well. He was a man of generative and innovative and new ideas. And this is what we learn from Umar. We learn from Umar our in-depth, that our faith should be in-depth. Our charisma should be strong. Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. Subhanallah. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is reported to have said that if there is a prophet after me, he would be, or Abu Bakr. No, would be Umar. If there is a prophet after me, he would be Umar. Each of the Sahaba has a specific charisma or character. We remember him with, I think, part of the schedules of this course may be to include not just the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and his hadith, but the seerah of his companions and the lessons we learn from them, not just as companions, but the successors. It was the initiative of Umar ibn al-Khattab, a man of initiatives, when it was during the war of apostates. Certain people after the death of the Prophet were apostates. They refused to pay the zakah. They said, look, we used to pay the zakah to the Prophet, but now we are in no need. The Prophet has died, we are in no need to pay the zakah. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, said, look, zakah is part of the 5 main pillars of al-Islam, and you have to pay the zakah. Certain arguments and counter arguments, it led to the war. Sayyidina Abu Bakr launched a war against those who deny zakah. Simply when you deny prayer, you are a kafir, you are not a Muslim. Under certain rules and regulations. You may not pray because you are ignorant, you are lazy, and also you may not pray because you no longer believe in the importance of prayer. You think that it's part of it's awkward, backward, whatever. So those people refused categorically to pay the zakah, and that's why Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, launched an attack against him. And in this attack, there were memorizers of the Quran, people who keep the Quran by heart. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of us and to help all of us keep the whole Quran by heart. If you can't keep the whole Quran by heart, try 3/4, half, 1/4, 1 juz, 1 para. You see, para? 1 para. I had to learn it because I'm leading a Muslim community and predominantly South Asian or Pakistani. So they always tell me, look, we have to recite para and the quarter. And I start asking, what's para? Yes, that's juz, that's part, that's portion of the Quran, that's para. So at least quarter a para. Yeah, when it was during the war of apostates, some of the memorizers were engaged in war, and we learned something. people who memorize the Quran, they were not just backward mullahs dressed in their gowns and thinking that they are living in ivory towers. People who were memorizing the Quran, the real memorizers of the Quran are those who should be in the forefront. When there is a battle, when they are defending Muslim causes, because they knew the Quran, they keep it by heart, they act upon its teachings. It's not just about memorization. Although memorization is greatly appreciated and of great importance. But we learn from this. These are the underlying messages. When you read, because of course I won't be able to give you everything in such a very hasty workshop, I would say. But when you read between the lines, memorizers were engaged in war launched by Prophet, by companion Abu Bakr. So it can tell you something. Why? This of the memorizers. And they were very brave to engage fully in war. They are not just backbenchers or in the rears. You see, the memorizers were in the forefront. They were killed, and that's why they sacrificed their lives. We have little memorizers now. We do not have the big number of memorizers we used to have, and that's why it was the initiative of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, the man of initiatives, to tell Abu Bakr, look, we need to have the Quran in one book, to start collecting the Quran, because some of the memorizers have actually been martyred in the war, and we are fearful that the Quran might get lost also. The reservation of Abu Bakr in the beginning, he was a bit reserved. He told Umar, how come that I'll do something which was not done again at the time of the Prophet? And this reservation is quite noticeable even in our times. People would say, look, dua after collective prayer. It's something very common in our mosques here, brothers and sisters. And so many people approach me, you are a man, you are coming from Egypt, leading the whole community. How come you agree that to the bid'ati acts our Pakistani brothers are doing? This guy might have passed by Saudi Arabia. He didn't receive knowledge in Saudi Arabia. He might have flown over Saudi Kingdom, KSA. And he's just telling me you are committing a bid'ati act. Not just me, but he's attacking the whole community. And look, that kind of reservation. The reservation and the argument that is said is that it is not practiced during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm trying to relate the history to the current reality, by the way. Those people would say that it was not practiced during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why collective prayer after collective dua after the obligatory prayers is an innovation that's not acceptable. It was not practiced by the Prophet or his companions. Okay. Had Abu Bakr rejected the initiative of Umar quite categorically, he wouldn't have collected the Quran, and we wouldn't have been able to have the same mushaf we have nowadays. But they were really, really accommodating. They would listen. They would listen. Today after Fajr, somebody who knows faltering Arabic, wallahi, he was just telling me, Ya Sheikh, why do you pray after the Friday, after the prayers? It is bid'ah. I started explaining to him, he was not willing to listen. And he told me, look, I authored articles and I have read volumes. Jazakallah khair. If you have really authored the articles, just bring the authored articles and we can sit or have a conference about it. Subhanallah. So not everything should be considered or deemed an innovation. If everything is considered innovation, I won't be able, okay, I reject the laptop technology and the digital screen, okay, and I'll sit on the ground and tell, come on here, have a circle. No. This is an innovation, but وَنِعْمَةِ الْبِدْءِ, it's a wonderful innovation. And we learn from the prophetic hadith that man sanna fil Islami sunnatan hasana falahu ajruha. The one who initiates Umar's style. Umar was a man of initiatives. The one who initiates a good thing in Islam, he will have its reward and the reward of all those who follow it. And again, the one who initiates in Islam a bad thing, he will incur its sin and the sin of all those who do it after him. So we learn we shouldn't stop at the literal interpretation of the text. Please make sure not to godify the printed material. If you have a printed material, a printed out presentation of Sheikh Amin, whatever, and he's from al-Azhar, okay, that's fine. You trust his knowledge, you trust him, you think that he's sincere and genuine, that's fine. But don't take this as a Quran. Min dunillah. So when we stick to the literal interpretation, the very literal interpretation, while turning a blind eye to our reality, we are committing a grave mistake. Do you agree? Huh? Is that clear, brothers and sisters? The mission accomplished by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. They have chosen with the help of Zayd ibn Thabit, was a great companion, the excellent memorizers and the ascribers who used to sit with the Prophet and write down the revelation, and finally it was supervised by Zayd ibn Thabit and assisted by the great companions such as Abu Bakr and Umar. So Abu Bakr, who was having a strong reservation against it in the beginning, towards the end, he appreciated the wonderful ideas done by Umar. You might be approached by some non-Muslims who would say, look, the Quran you have is fake. It's not the original Quran. How can you prove this? You will start saying that it passed through a very articulate. They would bring Mr. A and Mr. B and then read to Mr. C and Mr. C to read to, and they make sure that it is fine. And they went to the old written stuff with the Prophet's wives, because the Prophet ﷺ used to record the Quran. At that time there were no pen and paper. They would record the Quran in a certain way, on bones, on palm leaves, that kind of old stuff. So this was the actual process, and then we will move on part of the recording of the Quran, actually the collection of the Quran. There is another progressive stage during the reign of Uthman alayhi salam. Okay, you may ask, during Abu Bakr era we collected the Quran. Why do we need to, why Sayyidina Uthman, may Allah be pleased with him, tried to do that with the Quran as well? Isn't it another innovation? The answer is no, because there were really genuine reasons by Sayyidina Uthman, because at the time Uthman was the ruler of the Muslim state. Islam gained many grounds due to futuhat. It means openings. Muslims used to engage with other armies and with other geographical locations and win new grounds. And with this, it was not just Muslim wars, if you remember those who deny zakah, but Muslim non-Muslims started a process of interaction. Maybe it's in the form, of course it's in the form of a military confrontation, but they used to talk to others, talk different languages, and a very keen Khalifa, ruler of the Muslims, that's Uthman ibn Affan, was very much concerned about the Quran being mixed. It's the language of the Quran being mixed with other languages. So that's why he ordered the Quran to be collected and copied in certain specific copies. And you know why also? At that time, Muslims mixed with different cultures, as I told you, and some Muslims were sent to certain countries to spread Islam. And those Muslims follow a specific mode of recitation. They would, do you know any modes of recitation? Have you attended any workshops about recitation? You already attended Tajweed. That's tartil, hadr, that fast, that slower. So certain Muslims used to instruct the nations or the countries they were sent by the great companions to preach Islam or to teach Islam, and they would teach them the Quran as well. But in their teaching of the Quran, they would stick to a certain rules of recitation. And those people would think that it is improper to study or to have another recitation or recitation mode. So this created a bit of perplexity within the whole Muslim countries. That's why Uthman told the great companions, among them was, by the way, Zayd ibn Thabit, to have unified versions, unified copies. So we have been moved from the basic collection into a more progressive, refined stage of having one unified copy, which is the copy which all of us, alhamdulillah, have it until now. What are the benefits? Why do we copy the Quran in Uthman's Caliphate? This was due to the reasons. Also, some of the Sahaba would, in their copies, write the tafsir. Some of the Sahaba, the tafsir means exegesis or interpretation. They are just reciting Surah Al-Baqarah, and in the margins, in the Mus'haf margins, they would write their own understanding and their interpretation of the text. And these copies were also in circulation. And Uthman ibn Affan was very fearful that these copies containing the interpretations or the explanations, people would think that the explanation is part of the Quran, and they start memorizing the Quran along with the explanation or interpretation. That's why it was really of absolute necessity to have the whole Quran in one unified copy with no margins, with nothing else except the Quran. The abrogated and abrogating verses, this is also part of ulum al-Quran. We call it al-Nasikh wa al-Mansukh. Al-Nasikh means abrogating. This is the subject, the verse which abrogates, and the Mansukh is the verse which is abrogated. That is the object. That is the subject of the process of abrogation itself. And again, if you remember, in the very start, we were talking about the literal and the technical. The literal and the literal and the technical definitions. Literally, the word naskh means to obliterate or cancel, i.e., a certain verse can limit. This is the opinion I follow. I won't say that a certain verse would cancel or obliterate or annul the another verse, but it may limit, it may refine the interpretation of another verse. Actually, there is a very good yet informative and very suitable chapter about, I don't know where it is. It's actually here. About al-Nasikh wal-Mansukh, or abrogating and abrogated verses. I'll hand it over to you towards the end. I think it has been, yes, it is here. I'm sorry. So that is the early development of Islamic jurisprudence by Ahmed Hassan. There is a complete chapter about the theory of al-Nasikh. And I want you to read it carefully, and inshallah, if we get the chance to discuss it later on, we will do, or at least I'll give you my email if you have any questions. But technically, naskh means that one Quranic ruling or verse restricts, modifies, or even abrogates altogether another verse. There is no authentic thing to tell when the theory of al-Naskh started. Also, for you who, is there anyone here who masters Arabic? No? Anyone here who masters Arabic, or just knows a little bit of Arabic? And by a little bit, I mean he's a good Arabic reader and can understand. So okay, quite. So there is a very important book as well. So this is an English source, and there is a very important book available in Arabic. I know it's very difficult because somebody has to spend 11 years of his life to author this book as a PhD. It was done at Cairo University by a great scholar, really. His name is Mustafa Zaid, and it is al-Nasr fil Qur'an. But it is really difficult, although I'll have to write it down. It's at Russell Square if somebody is living in London. This is a very important book, but this is a very good start for a beginner. It seems that when commentators and jurists couldn't reconcile apparently contradictory verses, there is no single verse in the Quran which really contradicts another verse. For example, if you do not understand the notion of graduality regarding wine, you remember the example? Huh? You really remember the example? Alhamdulillah. You know, fasting is once you approach iftar, you are just in a certain emotional line. Okay, I'm fasting like yourselves, by the way. Alhamdulillah. I was advised by the GB not to fast today due to certain illness which might have hindered me from coming, but I insisted on making my way to you. So it will be kept in our record of good deeds, inshallah.